This meeting is being recorded.
Brandon, I'm gonna mute you until it's your turn, if that's okay.
Okay, that's okay.
Welcome everyone to the 2022 Abound Health Supported Employment Symposium. We're really excited to have guest speakers today from Gabby, Powered by Special Abilities, Brandon Shannon Entertainment. We will be having guest speaker Chisa Penix Brown from Give It to the People, and In Focus Advocacy later to talk to us about diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace. And we'd like to start off by having Gabby start with Gabby's grounds and Gabby Powered by Special Abilities.
Okay,
And we'll have your presentation up shortly, Gabby.
cool.
Sherelle, I need access to screen sharing.
There you go, Olivia. Sorry about that. Okay. Whenever you're ready, Gabby. Thanks again.
No problem. Hi, I'm Gabby, and my hobbies is my favorite. Like, I love breakdancing, and it's my passion because it expresses my feelings about how I can do whatever. And I love tennis. Tennis is my favorite sport, basically, and soccer. And I love hockey. And I do Special Olympics of ice skiing, basketball, and gymnastics. And I went to college. I went to Wait Tech, and I did a lot of customer service and my friends too. And I'm a professional speaker. And this is my townhouse that I own now. Imagine if you were rejected at, I tried to do smoothie making, but they did not hire me because they just assumed that I was not right for the job, but they never tried me out. Then they just said no. Then I don't understand why they say no, they just never got me a chance to do that smoothie making job. And I only allowed to do 4 hours for Harris Theater that I used to work. And when I used to work there, I used to be a part-time bagger. And I did not like the job there because it was not fun. %19 of people with disability were employed in the US in 2021. In Gabby's grounds in 2017, before COVID hit, I wanted to do my own restaurant. And since I wanted to do my own restaurant, I was saving all my paychecks and my cash of money that I want to do it. Then me and my mom went to Bimbo's, and my mom said I cannot do a restaurant, but I can do a coffee shop. Then I said, let's do it. Then I went to LA to see Kelly Clarkson, and it was awesome to meet her in person. And since pandemic hit, we pivoted to the loading dock to do our own thing from the warehouse. Gabby's Pals, we started in 2020. We are doing packaging, assembling, labeling, shipping, and drop shipping for other companies and mailings too. And we're on site or off site. We go anywhere they want us to be. We go to theirs or they come to us. And these is my local partners. White Organic is my sister-in-law, Monica Angelini, and she's really awesome. And my other brother, Brandon, he's really awesome too. Our superpowers is autism is our quality control, and blind feels for imperfections. Cerebral palsy gives 100%. Down syndrome is giving hugs, and mine's a cuteness too. And physically disabled is creative solutions.
Murphy's Naturals is a natural products company. We specialize in products for outdoor living, and we also are the owners of the brand Santa's Naturals. Gabby's Pals is now doing a lot of packaging work for us and labeling work for us. Now I think the coffee shop might be on a back burner because she realizes she could employ a handful of people at a coffee shop, and that's also hard to open during a pandemic. But with this kitting and fulfillment, she can employ dozens of people, and that's what she's doing.
And
Murphy's Natural.
Our mission is to empower the special abilities community to find their place in the world and enjoy fulfillment in everything they do. Our socialize is we make friends and we always have good time and have a blast to be with each other. We're just like family, and we do education on every Friday to do education stuff like customer service that we're doing and other stuff too. And independence is we can do hours that we can work best for us. And we always have perfect friendships with one another. And this is my friend Sammy, who worked for us for 2 years. Then found him employment at Chick-fil-A. And my other friend, Cooper, who worked for us for 1 year and now employed at Echo Park. We currently have 43 employees. Our future goals is grow our business to expand more and open our own warehouse and expand off-site. And we're still hiring more people, and we're doing Gabby's Village. And I co-wrote this book, Gabby the Puppy. It's about anti-bullying because I used to get bullied throughout high school and college. We need your support for donations, referrals, and purchases. Learn more at this link at Gabby's Grounds and Gabby's Pals. Pals is packaging, assembling, labeling, and shipping. Our philosophy is let each of you look not only to his own interests, but also to the interests of others. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gabby. We greatly appreciate you sharing your presentation today. Is there anything coming up or any special events that you'd like to share?
I'm good right now.
Well, thank you again, and I hope you have a good rest of the afternoon, and we're going to hand it over to Brandon Shannon. Thank you again, Gabby.
Thanks.
Hi, Brandon. How are you doing today?
Good. I'm good. I'm great.
Thank you again for being a part of the symposium today. I look forward to interviewing you about your employment journey.
I'm ready. Thank you.
Can you tell us what your employment journey is today, Brandon?
I worked as a stocker at Trader Joe's for 7 years. My favorite part of the job was helping customers find products and recommending products. I resigned after receiving 2 left knee surgeries. I could no longer squat for long periods of time to stock products. I volunteered as a puppeteer for 6 years with the inReach Troop A01, traveling puppet group. I dramatized 5 animal puppets, a rooster, crow, pig, bumblebee, and dog, before a live audience. The audience included children preschool through 2nd grade, the Nature Museum, group homes, and retirement homes. I resigned to pursue my dream to start my own business and perform as a puppeteer and voice actor.
Thank you, Brandon.
Mm.
How did you feel when you received your first paycheck?
Happy and more independent.
What challenges have you faced with employment?
I could not find an organization in which I could use my voiceover and puppetry skills. But when my mom spoke with Sherelle Gills, a Supported Employment manager, about my dreams and ideas, I was happy and had hope.
That's great to hear, Brandon. What advice do you give your peers?
Don't give up on your dream. Don't be afraid. Find someone to help you pursue your passion and dream. Then create your own business or work with a company that allow you to pursue your passion and use your gifts and talents.
That is such great advice, Brandon. Thank you for sharing.
Mm.
What are your plans for the future?
Work with the Charlotte Hornets as a puppeteer and voice actor before, during, and after their games. I would like to work with Eric Collins and other basketball commentators for ESPN. I would love for my puppet Ben Cool to discuss the basketball teams with Stephen A. Smith, the sports analyst. Own a house, find a girlfriend who is AAA, active, affectionate, and adventurous. She must love the Lord, have a job she enjoys, and like sports.
That is such great plans for the future, Brandon. Thanks for sharing those. What is something that you would like to share about your employment journey with the audience?
My journey has been hard, long, and sad. When I'm not able to share my passion to perform with other people, sadness covers my heart, and I love to perform and make people laugh.
And I was going to say, Brandon, you definitely bring the light into the room. Your humor is outstanding, and I love the way that you always seem to make other people feel happy and uplift them.
Thank you.
What is a success you would like to share?
I created puppet videos to post on YouTube to begin the process of setting up my own business. In November 2022, I met virtually with Brian Donovan. He has been acting professionally for 25 years. He provided me with expert advice and feedback regarding voice acting to create great puppet videos. My puppet, Mr. G, the barber, would like to share 6 tips to achieve a long and successful career as an entrepreneur.
Hi, Mr. G.
I'm Mr. G. The G stands for Grandpa. I'm the owner of Mr. G's Barbershop in the great state of Alabama. Thank you for inviting me to your virtual support employment meeting. Owning my own business is just lovely. I have worked as a barber for 82 years and I am still active in my career. The best thing about being a barber is making my customers smile. The worst thing about being a barber is nothing except rude customers. I would like to share with you 6 tips to achieve a long and successful career as an entrepreneur. Number 1, always select a career that makes you wake up each morning happy to perform. Number 2, never take advice from fools. Number 3, always set goals and work hard to accomplish them. Number 4, don't be afraid to adjust and change some of your goals as you learn from your mistakes. Number 5, be patient and never give up on your dream. Finally, from the words of Miss Sherelle Gales, always give yourself grace. Take a break if you become overwhelmed with working on your business dream. Goodbye, y'all.
Thank you so much, Mr. G.
You got it. Okay,
Thank you, Brandon. That was great. And how can we stay connected with you for future updates?
You can stay connected for future updates at Brand Shannon Entertainment on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Thank you so much. Is there anything else you would like to share with us today?
I would like to thank my mother, amazing mother, for doing this for me. And I would like to thank all the people that believed in me. Thank you to everybody.
Thank you so much, Brandon, for sharing your reflection today with everyone. And we look forward to sharing more about Brandon Shannon Entertainment. And make sure to follow his pages and then look forward to his YouTube videos. He'll have more coming out that we'll be sharing in our community group. Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. L.
that's right. I can't
Have a
do
great day.
it. Yeah. Yes, you play. Okay.
And as we get ready for our next presenters, we'll take just a short moment. And it looks like we have some individuals joining us from Focus Advocacy as well. They'll be presenting shortly. Thanks again for everyone who just joined the Zoom call. While we're waiting, I would love to share some more insights on everything that's happened this past year as a reflection. So we're really excited that we were able to have the Abound Health Supported Employment Department work on some community initiatives, and we'd like to discuss some of those. Right now, we have a partnership with Service Source. They're our liaison for benefits counseling through the North Carolina Department for Developmental Disabilities. So if anyone's interested after this call and wants to connect with Pablo and our Service Source team, please feel free to reach out to me directly at Sherelle.Gales@aboundhealth.com or se@aboundhealth.com. And we can help you with those benefits questions, with anything in regards to food stamps, housing, anything in regards to Medicaid and Medicare services as well. So we definitely want to take advantage of those additional resources in our partnership with Service Source. And we'll definitely have a call in January and a family seminar training that Pablo will be hosting. So look forward to that, save the date, and we'll get that information out via constant contact. One of our other community partners is NC Able. We will be having a session with them in January to talk more about what they'll have in regards to saving for the future and being able to save over the 2,000 threshold. We definitely want to be able to talk more about these accounts when people are planning for the future and make sure they have those additional resources. So look out for that training coming out in January with NC Able as well. We also will be working on a collaboration with NC Works. Currently, we are working on some personal local community initiatives for outreach. We'll be linking up with them for their training centers and resources. So we'll definitely make sure there's a list that goes out across the state of your local entity that's nearest to you. So you can reach out for more information. And then you can also loop in our SC department for any additional wraparound service or communication that's needed for that as well. So look for that information coming out late January. Another one of our community collaborations that we're working on currently with is Chisa Penix Brown from Give It to the People. We had our first micro enterprise business series session yesterday evening. It was on how to start a business. We will be having another session January the 11th on how to start a business plan. And on January the 25th, we will have a session on marketing for your business. We know when trying to start a business and trying to think about the logistics and legalities behind that, we wanted to make sure we had an expert come in. So look for that recording to come out via constant contact with the guide and recording, so you can be able to be prepared for January 11th session. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to se@aboundhealth.com. And we'll definitely be sharing more of that in our community group as well. We're looking forward to that partnership with the SBA and being able to share more of their centers around the state, and then being able to make sure that that communication is clear and that you have additional support within those region systems. So we're definitely wanting to take advantage of that, and we'll share any other SBA classes or summits that come up that we think that would be in hand for the group. So look forward to that coming out more in January. And I want to take a second because I think one of the individuals is unable to join at the moment. Can I ask, is everyone here currently for In Focus Advocacy? Are y'all waiting on? Perfect. So I would like, and we'll go back if the other person is able to join, but since everyone is here from In Focus Advocacy, I would love to introduce them. We're so excited to be partnering again with InFocus Avity to talk more about diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace. And I will hand it over to the team to introduce yourself, since y'all have multiple people, and I want everyone to be able to acknowledge. So thank you again, and we appreciate having InFocus Advocacy today for our Abound Health Supportive Employment Symposium.
Thank you, Sherelle. We are very excited to be here and be a part of this training. And we have a great team today that's going to be representing InFocus Advocacy. I'm Ginger Walton. I'm a co-founder and co-executive director. My co-director, Dr. Stuart Schlein, is on the call. Our program and social media specialist, Ms. Maddie Burrows, is on the call. Our consultants, Mr. Mike Stolio. Throw your hand up. There you go, Mike. Allie Clayton and Mr. Trey Key. I'm looking for Trey. I don't see him, but I know he's here. There you are, Trey. Okay, good. So we'll get started and give you an overview of who we are and what we're doing. And we're going to preface this by saying that none of us are supported employment specialists. We are not job coaches. So we're going to come at this from a different angle. And I hope that it will be something that you can apply to the work that you're doing. So InFocus Advocacy is a 501c3 nonprofit, and we are in the business of creating more inclusive communities. We do this by preparing businesses and organizations. We empower self-advocates who we consider to be the experts, those that are living with disabilities, and we design inclusive programming. And this is something that we've been doing for over 10 years now, and we're excited to be a part of Abound Health in your efforts to promote inclusion. We're going to start by showing a video, and if you have seen this video, I'd appreciate knowing that in the chat. We want to show things that are new and creative. We just don't know if this is something that has been seen, but it does an excellent job of addressing stereotypes and assumptions that people make about individuals with disabilities. So we'll see. It's about 3 minutes. Mike, everything you need?
Yeah.
The administrator, it may be Sherelle.
Did the volume come through? Great.
It just did.
So how come you're a thing?
I'll start it from the beginning.
Sorry, I realized I was muted. You could not hear me, but yes, we could hear.
Awesome.
Good morning, Rob. Morning there. Big man. Morning. There's no need to be awkward. Poor Bob. Like so many of us, he just doesn't know how to interact with people with disabilities.
It's pretty easy, really. People with disabilities are people first.
We need the same things that every person needs, like respect.
Good morning, everyone.
Attention!
Okay. Maybe we need to be more specific.
The easiest way to show respect is to focus on the person, not the disability. It's okay. You'll get the hang of it.
One easy way to focus on the person is to watch the person signing and not their interpreter.
Or their companion.
It's really cool that you'd like to help, but do us both a favor and please ask me first. What you think might be helping?
I got you.
Oh no, might actually not. If you'd like to offer me help, let me hold on to your elbow. Don't take mine.
Hey, would you like to take mine?
Sure.
Assistive devices help us to live our lives. They're really important and really personal.
Grabbing them only makes it weird for everyone.
Please only touch our devices and service animals if we've given you permission.
don't take it personally if I ask you not to. Remember that my service animal helps me all the time. Neither of us would like it if we were separated.
Remember, we make our own decisions. We sign documents, vote, volunteer, work, and pay taxes.
We get married.
So don't listen to me just because I have a great smile.
Just because I'm blind does not mean I'm deaf. Just because I'm deaf doesn't mean I'm blind.
And just because I use a wheelchair doesn't mean that I can't sweep you off your feet.
So take a deep breath, relax. We don't fight.
Unless we're really hungry.
Hello there, ladies. How are you?
And if you're not sure what to do, just ask.
Hi, would you still like to see a menu?
No thanks, but can you please read it to me?
Sure, definitely.
Just treat us the way you would want to be treated, and we'll all be okay.
Morning. Good morning. Morning, Alice.
Awkward no more. Nice job, Bob. Go forth and be human. There's no need to be awkward.
Okay. So again, if you'll let us know in the chat if you had seen that before, I'm curious to know if this is something that's pretty widely used. We need to get beyond stereotypes, and you saw some assumptions and some stereotypical thinking in that film clip, and we'll talk a little bit more about that going into the presentation, and how it applies to employment and how it applies to other areas in our community. So this slide just depicts everyone that's on our team today. We have a number of consultants that work with us, and we hand select these consultants to share their experiences based on what we've been asked to provide for an organization or business. So when you see all the words that are in the IFA acronym there, this describes a lot more than disability. We have avid readers, we have kayakers, we have comic book readers, we have cooks and tennis players, tons of things that are there that I'll bet also describe many of the folks in the audience today. We all are multifaceted, and it's important to look beyond that disability, as you all know. With that,
I'm completing that rock
so they got ahead of me there. So we have some of the folks here that are on the team today, and we'll look at Randa's video at the very end here. But, you know, we have people who are graduating from college who are receiving certificates of post-secondary education completion and, you know, are working in the community. So, Mike, I love this picture of you at Mythos.
Yeah, thank you.
And who are some of the guys in the photo?
Well, it's one guy behind me, and that's Eddie. He's my boss over there at Mythos.
Okay. So what was this made, the picture?
Jeff Tillman, that I used to work with for the Star Mount magazine a few years ago. And I work for that magazine too also. And so his brother in that picture and then two other guys are my F3 guys I work out with on Thursday evenings I was singing about.
Okay, so these are guys that you
we have like F3 names like Tommy Boy and Gunny. That's their F3 names on there. Okay. And same thing for Special Plan. The way they call it like cafeteria, and they go there like in the springtime and Christmas time, like 8:30 in the morning, have fun, get some coffee and hang out with all the F3 buddies.
That's wonderful. So these are guys that you work out with in the community, as well as you've got your boss pictured at Mythos Greek Restaurant.
That's right. And my F3 name, I didn't tell you, my F3 name is the King because I'm a big fan of Elvis.
There you go. There you go. And I bet all of those guys know that you're a big fan of Elvis.
That's right.
And I've
seen
actually,
that movie though.
Yeah. I've actually seen you do a pretty good Elvis impersonation before.
Very
So
much.
I know that's a talent that you have for sure. And it's really cool that the guys are getting to know you through these different activities in the community, as well as through your workplace. That's really neat. And you've got a Y shirt on there too.
I'm still wearing it right now. I just got off work today.
Okay.
Yep.
How long
I'm the longest employee at the Y for almost 20 years.
That's incredible.
I started working there since I was in high school, and all the staff members I used to work with, they went doing other jobs. So I'm the last man standing, still standing in that in that same building for 20 years.
Wow. Wow. So I imagine that you surprise a lot of people when you tell them that you've had that job for 20 years now.
Sure did. Well, yeah, for 20 years, from about I skipped 1 year because of COVID, but it's still 20 years.
Sure. And they welcomed you back after things relaxed a little bit.
That's right. Yes.
That sounds awesome. And Trey, I know that you are going to have more to say going forward, but I love the photo of you teaching a group recently, as well as you getting your certificate from UNCG. That's really terrific. Terrific. We have Randa, who is one of our consultants, who is on a video in the center. And what you can't see in this video is that this particular consultant uses a wheelchair, but I want you to see what she can do.
Hey guys, I'm competing in a rock climbing competition in about 20 or 30 minutes. Can't wait, super excited.
I think that illustrates quite well that we should never make assumptions about people and their interest and abilities. And I'm going to turn it over now to Stuart Schlein.
Hi there. And I just want to also say hello and thank you to Sherelle and Rahid for having us. And it's great to spend some time with you today. You know, Ginger's talking about assumptions. Not making assumptions are related to the attitudes that we hold as we think about people who are different than we are. And you know, when we think of barriers to competitive employment, to inclusive schooling, to making friends in the community, we typically think about, you know, the physical inaccessibility as kind of the key barrier. Well, you can't get into the building, you know, the things are not architecturally accessible, blah, 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 blah. And that's very true. You know, our cities are not very accessible, and we know that. But, and we also think as far as barriers, lack of skills, you know, skill deficits of folks we are serving with intellectual and developmental disabilities and multiple disabilities. And even if they're hidden disability, you know, they have so many, you know, there's such a lack of talent. They just don't have the skills to work competitively or to make real friends. We know all that, but we believe that the most significant barrier out there that really prevents people from having opportunities to live good lives, to have a quality of life, are the attitudinal barriers that exist. And those attitudes, I say negative attitudes, are not just attitudes of typical people out in the community or at the workplace. The attitudes are also within us as staff members, as family members. We all hold certain attitudes about people who are different than we are. And, and we really need to change these things. Well, listening to Mike, as he hangs out works at the Y and has friends visiting him, and he works at a coffee shop, and he's serving, he does great work at this Greek restaurant. I mean, you wouldn't think there were too many negative attitudes there keeping us back, but in fact, as we all know, it's quite prevalent. So for example, just to kind of illustrate that, fear is an attitude. It's that last point on that slide. Fear is an attitude. We're so afraid of saying the wrong thing. We're so afraid of offending somebody with a disability or somebody who's different than we are, that ultimately we just avoid people. We avoid the tough questions. We avoid learning more about those that we're serving, that we need to be befriending, that we need to be including in the community, and things just kind of stay the same due to that fear of the unknown. How do you get beyond fear? Repeated practice. You need to spend a lot of time getting to know people who are different than you are, and ultimately becoming less afraid as we realize that people are so much more like us than different. They're not just our clients. They're not just our patients. These are people who can be our friends, who need the same opportunity, who want the same opportunities in the community as everyone else. Another attitude that's quite prevalent, not only among the community, but even within staff members and ourselves, is this pity thing. People feel so sorry for people with disabilities, which leads to patronizing attitudes. We know for a fact that individuals with disabilities and others who are marginalized don't want to be patronized. They don't want to be felt sorry for. They don't want our pity and charity. What do people really want? Equal opportunity. We need to get beyond pitying people. Another attitude I'd love to share a little bit about is this inferiority, that the individual that we serve or employ or play with in the community, those individuals are often seen as second-class citizens. Second-class citizens. If you're considered a second-class citizen, we're basically going to believe that you don't have the skills and you don't deserve the same opportunities for quality of life activity as you have. We need to get beyond that. Individuals who are marginalized are not second-class citizens. They have the same skills as anybody else. They need opportunities. They need good evidence-based practices to help them get there. We need to be thinking beyond stereotypes. Stereotypical thinking just gets us into so much trouble. Stereotypes like, if you use a wheelchair, there's no way in the world you're going to be able to go to that gym like Randa did in that video and actually get out of her chair with some adapted equipment and climb, a climbing wall. It's 3 stories high on the UNCG campus. Sherelle, you know that climbing wall. Here's a woman who literally gets out of her chair and gets up that wall. Certainly took a lot of practice, but it also it also becomes reality because people aren't thinking stereotypically at that rec center. They're not thinking, oh my goodness, here's a woman, she's been using a wheelchair, she has other physical issues. There's no way in the world. She might be innocent, she might be sweet-natured, she might be friendly, she might be sad, she might be bitter. These are the stereotypical thoughts that we have of people with disabilities, not unlike looking at, Mike and saying, oh, I don't know if Mike, maybe Mike can, hang out and be my friend, but to do really good work at 3 different places, I'm not so sure. Well, we need to get beyond those typically negative thoughts and generalizations about people who have labels. So those are the types of attitudes out there in our community that just really get in the way, even as staff members, just get in the way of doing extraordinary things with people with disabilities to provide them with great opportunities to live lives that are fair, that are just, that are interesting, that are exciting, that are therapeutic. So those are just a few thoughts. My final comment about attitudinal barriers that are so prevalent in our society has to do with hero worship. And it's when we consider somebody with a disability as fantastic, spectacular, special, when they do something that actually is quite ordinary. I have watched people who open a door by themselves and like all of a sudden, it's like, wow, this person's incredible. I can't believe they can get into that, that conference room all by themselves. Well, people with disabilities don't want to be considered brave and special. There are folks who do not want any accolades for doing day-to-day tasks like you and I. They do not want to be considered special simply because they've learned to adapt using their skills to do what everybody else does. I'll never forget, and it's to drive this point home, watching this video, you may have already seen it. It went viral a few years ago, 3-4 years ago, just before the pandemic. This kid on the autism spectrum gets included on a basketball team. It was a rec league, and he gets included into a game during the final seconds, literally, of the game. He hasn't played the entire season. He was like the towel guy, talk about stereotypical thinking. And he gets into the game with a few seconds remaining, and he shoots a ball, 3-point shot, sinks the ball. And not only does the team go crazy, but literally the entire world went crazy. This went viral. This was seen by millions of eyeballs. I had faculty at the university come to me, so excited. I'm not even talking to students, faculty coming to me saying, did you see that? It was the most incredible thing. That entire scenario made me so sad that here's an individual who's on the team. It was a Y team or a Rec and Parks League team. On the team, didn't play the entire season. Why not? And then he shoots a basket and gets it in. It's like the takeaway should have been, well, why didn't he play more over the season? Why did we wait till the last few seconds of the last game of the season to let this guy play and shoot a basket? So he was a hero. He was just touted as this hero. I was reading in the newspaper just the other day, this guy with one arm who is playing football, competitively at like the collegiate levels, and he's like considered a hero. Guy doesn't want to be considered a hero. He wants to be considered a football player like everybody else. So anyway, attitudes are a big problem out there. They were back in the 1950s and 60s. They were in the 90s when we passed the Americans with Disabilities Act, and we're still dealing with these same negative attitudes out there in our community, as well as among our staff, that really get in the way of providing people with great opportunities to live more independently and have a good quality of life. So that's just a few thoughts I wanted to share.
And before we move on, I also wanted to kind of give my experience with the attitudinal barriers. I have a younger sister with a disability. She was born with Down syndrome. And I could speak to every single one of these on this slide that we've encountered. But one I wanted to talk about was the stereotypes, both positive and negative. So I know a big stereotype that you get whenever you're talking about people with Down syndrome is the typical saying is, oh, well, they're always happy. And even though that is majority of the time she is very happy, she also has bad days like anyone else. She feels things so deeply, whether that's a happy moment, a sad moment. I remember as she was growing up, things would bother her and she would get upset, and she has a cousin about the same age, and she would say, why is she so sad? Why is she so sad? And it's like, because of that stereotype, it almost, to Grace, my sister, almost doesn't allow her to feel what she feels because she's being constantly told that she's supposed to be happy or she's always happy. And even though that's a positive thing to be happy, it doesn't always translate that way. And it's okay for her to feel things differently. And then also just this fear aspect, people being awkward or uncomfortable and speaking to people with disabilities or being around people with disabilities. We have a wonderful consultant that works at Walgreens, and she said sometimes she was speaking at another event that we had, and she was like, sometimes kids come up and they point at me and their parents are hush, hush, don't look, don't point, don't say anything. When in reality, she welcomes that. She welcomes, ask me a question, ask me my name, because when we're opening that question or opening a positive interaction with them, like it takes away that like fear and that awkwardness. It's just communicating with someone. So before we move on, I just kind of wanted to open the floor if any of our consultants wanted to share any attitudinal barriers that they've experienced. And yeah, so take it away, whoever wants to talk.
I would imagine Trey and Allie and Mike all have experienced certain attitudes out there that have prevented them from doing something they wanted to accomplish. You want some quick, short pieces on that? Allie, you want to start? Any thoughts about?
Yeah, sure. First of all, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, this is one of my favorite topics because I get this a lot. I am a motorized wheelchair user, and so I get these kind of things a lot. I think most common for me is hero worship. That's one that I get a lot. Even though like now I'm in grad school and I'm in a position where I am, with people who we have the same educational background, we have, all of the same opportunities, and people are still looking at me and they're going, I just don't know how you do what you do. And I'm like, the same way that you do? Like, we're doing the same things. I'm not doing anything unique and different just because I'm doing it from a wheelchair, and it's one of those things. It's like it's kind of like Dr. Schein was saying, I am special, I am fantastic, I am wonderful, but that's because of who I am as a person. That has nothing to do with me living my life despite having a disability.
Well said, Allie. And you are a spectacular individual, and it is because of who you are, not because of the fact that you happen to use a wheelchair to get around. Absolutely. Trey, I know you like to think in terms of being out in the community and how people either help you get to where you want to be or some of the attitudes that have kept you back. Have you experienced some negative attitudes out there that have prevented you from, or would you rather speak about some of the things that people have done to actually lift you up and help you be the outstanding individual that you are?
I could speak more about, I want to speak about fear, but it's in a completely different direction where it's not just a regular person asking a person with a disability a question, but when I guess a person with a disability asks a person with a disability a question. Where when I was a kid and had no complete mind over what this is, or for that matter, as to how it works. If I were to say someone that remotely kind of acts like me, then I would walk up, introduce myself, and I would ask them questions. And not just because I was trying to learn about, not just because I was trying to learn about them, but because I was trying to learn about myself. And parents would be offended. my dad has seen this happen and my mom has seen this happen. And during then, like, I mean, because you would think during then, like, hey, there are particularly some parents that don't like to necessarily speak upon the subject that their child is different. And at that time, I thought I was the only one that was like this. And this was before I started, I guess, going to school and started going to like classes that were made for people like me. So I definitely called that a bit of an, so I would call that definitely an attitudinal barrier, especially if what you're trying to do is learn about yourself, because the first thing you kind of think of, I guess, before even knowing what the word is and what the meaning of it is, am I the only one that's like this?
Thank you, Trey.
I'd like to ask Allie a question, if I may, Stuart. I'm curious, Allie, particularly as you have excelled in your academic path, on your academic path, have you experienced any of the backlash attitude where people may assume that you're given an unfair advantage because of your disability?
Actually, surprisingly, not at this point. That used to happen a lot more in middle and high school. I remember as I was transitioning into middle school, I was bullied pretty severely because, I was given accommodations on testing and things like that. And people assumed that the only way that I was getting the grades that I was getting at that point in my life was because the teachers were giving me the answers when I was getting my accommodations. So it has happened before, but thankfully it's not something that has happened recently at this point, especially because I am going to school for social work and it's just such an open profession. Folks tend to be pretty okay with the fact that I need what I need and I don't get questioned or like bullied for it anymore, but I definitely used to. But that it's been several years, thankfully.
All right, let's move on.
All right, so on this slide, you're gonna see some statistics. So 2,521,022 people in North Carolina have a disability. This is equal to about 30% or 1 in 3 adults. So I want you to look at this number and then I want you to multiply it by a lot. Okay, whenever we see this number, we think about the individual, but with that individual comes family members, friends, people that they meet in school or out in the community. Disability impacts so many more people than what's shown on this page. And because of that, it's so important to build a culture of inclusion. And on our next slide, there's going to be a short video that's going to play automatically of Trey kind of speaking to his experience. Well, I thought it was going to go automatically, but that works out. I can click play.
I was told at the age of 2 that there were a lot of things that I would not be able to do. My parents denied those ordeals. So somewhere down the line, not even sure if I would be able to, I'd like to see this doctor, shake his hand, and without him necessarily realizing it, say that I am the guy that you said I would not be able to do anything. And including having a voice. So, how have you been?
I love this video so much. And it just speaks to, I'm sure, what so many people with disabilities encounter. And, it's just so important that we build this culture of inclusion, because people with disabilities, they want to be heard and they want to learn from each other, but also their community, staff, peers, overcoming obstacles with support, and support as needed, not assumption support, but support as needed or as stated by that individual. And as we all know, don't underestimate people with disabilities. Just because they have a disability does not mean that they can't do anything or live a typical life. And to not make assumptions. People with disabilities and our IFA consultants are just so wonderful at showing this time and time again, that they all have interests, they all have talents, and they all have skills to share. So did anyone want to say anything to this slide before we move forward?
Yeah, I didn't tell you about my barrier either. It happened 10 years ago. Stuart, you probably remember this 10 years ago, and that goes for you too, Ginger. One barrier is 10 years ago, I was on Facebook, and you know me, I'm a big WWE fan, and it's this is a video game I'm trying to get, and I want to add something on the video game. And out of nowhere, I see somebody on Facebook that never seen me before, never seen a picture of me before, and they called me the R word. R-E-T-R-T. But I said, excuse me, but you never seen a picture of me, but I have a disability of Down syndrome, and that really hurt my feelings. And I have been bullied with that word on Facebook. So, like I said, I'm a huge fan, so I didn't ask on the video game. So when I saw Stuart in at the theater for on stage from a few years ago, and I told him the whole story about that, and he's on my side for this too. So I'm not very happy about that when they call me that word, because our word is just a very strong word for people with disabilities. So all my friends on Facebook page, I got bunch of likes and 1,000 comments, and Miss stood up on my side and stood up for me for my barriers, and please don't call me that R word on Facebook. Everybody's like, wow, you really told him off, and I was not happy about that.
That was a big ordeal. And
Yeah,
I can easily
you
say
remember that,
that
I do, Mike, and you are, you're changing the community,
That's right.
by working on those attitudes and language, and
Yeah.
that's really important work, and we appreciate that. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you, Stuart.
This culture of included culture is more than just what a staff member or a parent or a sibling does. For a culture to change and to truly embrace an inclusive community or an inclusive workplace or an inclusive school, it has to be top down and bottom up. It can't only be grassroots where, the clients or the participants and their family members and advocates are fighting for rights and inclusion. It also has to be top down, administration, leaders of the agency, as well as staff members all need to kind of buy into the idea that we shouldn't be making assumptions, and we should not be underestimating people, and everybody deserves an opportunity to work or to recreate, or to learn further. It really is a top-down, bottom-up. Everybody has to be involved for inclusion, for inclusive services to be sustainable. And so, culture is important, but we also know that a culture doesn't change unless everybody buys into this. Maddie, you want to go move on here? Mm-hmm. So a few comments that I'd like to make about an inclusive community includes these ideas. Oftentimes, people with disabilities are just not involved at all. You know, there's no way we could even consider this an inclusive workplace or an inclusive school. There's just no involvement. And that's due to the negative attitudes we've already discussed. It's due to community stigma, where, you know, I've had organizations say to me, well, you know, it's kind of bad if we include a lot of people with disabilities into this program, because then we might be known as the disabled program, and people without disabilities may not even want to come and participate. Is that true? I mean, there's all kinds of stigma involved here because people just don't know and they're really ignorant. And there are barriers of omission why people don't participate at all. Barriers of omission implying that program leaders, employers don't even know that there's a need out there, that people with disabilities want to work and want to be active members of the community. It's this barrier of omission. It's not even on the radar screen, which boggles my mind. And considering today where there's such a shortage of workers, where you would think that they'd want to broaden their scope and look at others who were traditionally unemployed. But that's the non-involvement part, where there's just no services, people just not welcomed at all. Once you kind of receive services, oftentimes it's segregated. So people are working in, you know, in vocational training programs. They're participating in Special Olympics only. They're in segregated YMCA soccer leagues. They're in special schools. Their summer camp opportunities are in segregated camps, or you're only able to participate in the rec center with other people using wheelchairs on Tuesday afternoons. There's a lot of segregated programming, segregated employment, segregated schooling out there. Certainly better than non-involvement, but we need to get beyond segregated special services. When we do that, we like to consider ourselves inclusive, where we're including people of varying abilities into our regular programs, into our regular job sites. But the point I want to make here is that inclusion is not inclusion is not inclusion. I have seen so many different types of programs where staff members and leaders consider these programs inclusive. I was just working with the camp industry with 890 camp leaders last week in Atlanta, and there were people there who were speaking about their inclusive camps, but in essence were vocational training programs in day camps for youth with disabilities. And they were considering that inclusive camping, which I cannot believe. There were people there who run camps within camps. They were segregated camps for individuals with disabilities at the same place as the regular camp, but it was a camp within a camp. It was very secluded. Perhaps they ate meals together in the dining room, in the cafeteria. But other than that, it wasn't very inclusive at all. So my point is, if we're going to be thinking about inclusive work opportunities, inclusive recreational opportunities, inclusive service delivery, we need to really think seriously about what inclusion should look like. And I have designed these levels of inclusion that I think are important because they give us targets, they give us goals to work toward when we include people who are marginalized into our existing programs. The first level of inclusion is really just physical integration, where people with disabilities are now at the workplace. Okay, we've got some folks working in our hospital and they're folding, they're washing the laundry and they're folding things and putting them back into the closet, into the cabinets. It's not an inclusive hospital, inclusive workplace. There are people who are physically integrated there. The Americans with Disabilities Act insists upon that physical integration. We need to make sure that the building is physically accessible. They have to be able to get into the doors. Allie, who uses a wheelchair, needs to be able to access a ramp to get there. But just by being there or working there doesn't imply a lot of good things happening. All that implies is that people with disabilities are physically proximal to their non-disabled peers. They're in the same place, but there may not be any rich interpersonal, interactions going on. It's merely physical integration. We've let people in the doors because the laws tell us we have to. The lowest rung of the inclusion continuum. From there, we move to something that's much more positive, where we, as employers and as recreation providers and as school staff, we help people participate in age-appropriate ways. So they're not only in the building, they're not only in the gym, they're not only working in the hospital or the YMCA or what have you, but they're functioning in age-appropriate ways. They're experiencing some success, some enjoyment, similar to their age-appropriate peers. So that's a good thing. There's some functioning going on. I worked a lot with folks in YMCAs, and we get to the functional inclusion level where, all right, they're riding stationary bikes, they're working out with the equipment, we're jogging around the track, we're using the sauna and the swimming pool like others. There's no interaction with other people, but at least they're now engaged functionally in age-appropriate, socially appropriate ways, and it's providing them with some skills and enjoyment. But that's still not what our target is. I believe we need to be working toward the socially inclusive level. And as we listen to our consultants working with us at In Focus Advocacy, we continuously hear that same message. We not only want to be in buildings and have jobs like everybody else, we also want to have the same skills, but we also want to be able to do things socially with our peers. It's not enough to be working out at the Y. It's not enough to be a barista in the coffee shop. Social inclusion implies you're also hanging out and socializing with people who are not paid to be there. Okay, so I'm talking about socializing, experiencing those rich interpersonal relationships with other people. When Randa climbs that wall at the rec center, she's not only functionally included because she's showing some really great skills, she's socially included. She gets down from that wall and she has friends at that rec center who want to hang out with her and want to go and drink a smoothie after the workout. That's truly socially inclusive. Mike demonstrates that so well when he's at the Y and they want to hang a picture of him and his buddies up on the wall behind the front desk because Mike is truly socially included there. He is as a valuable member of that workforce as anybody else at that Y. So social inclusion implies not only being somewhere and enjoying or working, but also being competent during break time. And when work is over on weekends, somebody calls you and asks you to go see the Avatar new movie, and truly becoming part of the social environment of wherever you are. And I think this is really important because the term inclusion is just such a prevalent term today, as is DEI. Everybody's talking about diversity and equity and inclusion, but very few really know what it looks like. But when I listen to Trey, I learn what it really means to be socially included in an environment. And that's what we need to be working towards. So let's continue on with this conversation.
I'm autistic. I heard that being ableist language.
Okay, so we're gonna spend a moment on language. And before I play these videos, I just kind of wanted to say that, when you think about language, it impacts the work environment, it impacts your employees' experience, it impacts the community. And we spoke about attitudinal barriers, and the attitudinal barriers start here, and then that also impacts our language. So I'm glad that we tackled that first because that's really important, but language is also important. And so we're going to go over a few different types of language. We're going to talk about identity first language, person first language, and ableist language. And we have these really two great videos. They're about a minute long that we'll share, and then we'll dive deeper into it. Let's try this one first. Okay, well, I've clicked play, and if it starts playing, I'll stop talking and let it play. But first we'll tackle ableist language. So ableist language is any word or phrase that devalues people with disability. So like Mike mentioned earlier, the R word, that's a really offensive term. It's rooted in a lot of historical ignorance and just outright, it's just not nice. And so words like that, or lame, saying I'm lame, or you're lame, that's rooted, it has historical context with the disability community that was a negative connotation towards them. And so it's really important that we know and we tackle these things and change our language, because how we speak and how we speak to people is going to impact them. Turning a blind eye is another one, a popular one that I've heard quite often. And you're talking about a temporary turning a blind eye. You're asking someone to do something temporarily, when people who are blind, that's not temporary. They live with a visual impairment day in, day out, every single day. And again, this is another example of ableist language. Or wheelchair bound. I know that's something that Allie can speak to and has before, and I'll open up the floor to her after we tackle the others. But just things like that is just so important, because and changing our culture, we have to change our language. We can't continue to say things that devalue people. It's not right. And moving on, we have identity first and person first language. Identity first language has become more popular within the last couple years. It's when you place the person's diagnosis as core to their identity. So you may say, or a person may say, I am an autistic person, instead of the person first language, I am a person with autism. And the identity first language is just an opportunity for people in the disability community to be empowered and take ownership of their disability. A lot of people find empowerment in it. And in their disability. No, they're not saying that that's what labels them, but they are saying that I'm proud of my disability and this is who I am. And so that's where that identity first language comes in. And then person first language is probably one you've heard about, and it's been around for a really long time. It's when you center the person before the diagnosis. And so I am a person with autism. So you're not taking that as core to their identity, but as it's something that is a part of them. But as we like to say, when you don't know what to say or what a person may identify with, just ask them their name. This is where we go back to that open communication and taking away the fear and asking questions, because identity is personal and it's going to be different for every single person. So I want to open up the floor to our consultants to speak about language. Allie, do you want to start us off?
Sure, this is another one of my absolute favorite topics. Yeah, I think like most people, I was brought up hearing and understanding that person first language was the proper way to speak to people and to speak about people. But personally, for me, that has changed recently. I'm fine if people use person first language with me, but personally, I prefer identity first language. I am a wheelchair user instead of I am a person who uses a wheelchair. Because one, I just feel like person who uses a wheelchair to me just doesn't sound supernatural and conversational. And it just, especially folks who, really don't, like, they're not practiced with it. It just makes it sound unnatural. And it, to me, draws more attention to the chair than to me in the conversation anyway, especially if I have to correct folks. But this is huge. And I think my advice to everyone I speak to is use person first language until you're told otherwise, because if it's not correct, the person will correct you.
Thank you for sharing that, Allie. I know, Trey, you have a little bit of a different perspective. Would you mind sharing yours on language?
when it comes towards the way that I grew up, now even though I am an autistic person and I am a person with autism, I still would rather prefer my name because that's what I grew up with. And most of the time, if a person were to say exactly what you are, then it erases the person completely. And when that happens, then they'll either think of different names. And some of the times when a person knows exactly as to what you are, or at least how I've seen it sometimes, is that the first thing that seems to come to mind for some strange reason is, what is this person's button and how do we trigger them? That's why I don't necessarily, I don't always just tell people that I have autism. I would rather them know exactly who I am before I even trust them enough in order to actually let that piece of information out, because that's a part of me. That's not going anywhere.
Mhm. So because of these attitudinal barriers, you are more selective on who you invite in to your bubble and what you want them to refer to you as. And as you mentioned, you just want someone to say your name. Hey, Trey, that's what we all should shoot for and look for, is saying each other's names. I'm going to go back and then go forward in the presentation to see if one of the videos will load. And if it doesn't, we'll just move on. Okay.
It was just about to do it.
Technology, am I right? It's just something else.
The very first time you went to that slide, it did it, and now.
I know it. That's all right, though. We're going to move right into universal design. So universal design is probably one of my favorite things that I ever learned in my undergraduate degree, and was taught to me very well by Dr. Stuart Schlein, and he does a phenomenal job talking about universal design. But universal design is just so important. So what is universal design? It's when environments and programs are created from the very beginning. So in the brainstorming process and the pre-design, pre-building, you're just talking and laying everything out. It caters to the broadest number of people. So you're not having this retrospective, oh wait, this sidewalk actually isn't acceptable. Oh wait, this building, actually someone who uses a wheelchair cannot go through this doorway. It's whenever from the very beginning, the beginning stages of this building or this program, everyone is thought of. Okay, so it goes beyond accommodations mandated by the ADA. The ADA is wonderful, but it doesn't tackle everything. And so when you think about universally designed programs or environments, you're thinking about designs that are flexible, they're diverse, they do not stigmatize, and everyone is able to achieve their personal goals through these designs. So a popular one, and we'll show it in the next slide, is like curb cuts. And you think about curb cuts and they're wonderful, but it's not just for people who use a wheelchair. It's for the mother who pushes the stroller, the dad who pushes the stroller, or it's for the older adult who uses a walker. And it's not just like physical thing. It's more than that. And so we have this picture here, and this was actually from a folk festival training that we did. And we were walking down the sidewalk and someone had put out a sign that says, no scooters or something on the sidewalk. And because they put that sign out, Allie couldn't go all the way through. We had to move that sign. And, just thinking about things like that, like that's great that you want that sign out for your restaurant, but they weren't thinking about everyone in their environment and who might run into that obstacle. So universal design is just so important. And Dr. Stuart Schlein is going to talk a little bit more about it.
That photograph was quite interesting, as Allie walking downtown that day with a few of us might have encountered about a dozen obstacles that prevented her from getting across the city. But it's more than physical access, as Maddie said. Universal design is so critical because, again, it caters to the broadest number of people. I guarantee that if the workplace gets designed in a universal way, all employees will benefit, not just the one employee that happens to have, that happens to be on the autism spectrum. That's where we are today. This is kind of the best way to design environments, as Maddie said, proactively, long before we have, somebody in the workplace or the recreation center or the school. We say, uh-oh, there's a problem here. We have to adapt it. That's a reactive way of doing things. And it's also quite stigmatizing. Universal design is teaching us that as we think about the environments that people are in, we need to design those environments smartly so that not only is that individual with a disability, but everybody benefits from that. There are 7 principles. I'm not going to spend too much time there. I could spend hours speaking about universal design principles, but it's about making things equitable and perceptible so that you're using modeling and photographs and verbal cues to help people. We tolerate error so that if you don't do something exactly the way the instructions tell us, you're not going to hurt yourself. It accommodates a lot of different types of people doing things in a variety of ways, which is so relevant to the workplace if you think about it. So, it's entering into a building and having this newer revolving door that allows several people together to get in. That's not only for somebody using a wheelchair, that also helps mom and her daughter get into this building together, and getting through with a baby carriage, et cetera, et cetera. I'm familiar with the new specs for gymnasiums and workout centers and stuff, and making sure there's space for approach so that you don't have to squeeze through various machines to get to the machine you want to work out on. But there's good approach to the various places you need to go, kind of like that lake, where if you want to go fishing off, not from the typical pier, but off to the side where the water is deeper and there are more fish swimming around. Here, the designers built something that would allow people to get to various parts of the lake to truly experience the fishing that needs to be done, on this accommodating path. But let's move on. I'll give you a few examples of what universal design may look like. So this is one principle, equitable use. And I love this photo because this is kind of the newest way of designing, resting spots in cities, because city planners are learning about universal design, and they know that to get across the city where the tourism dollar is so important, we want people to be able to have success as they get from place to place. So they're building these little parklets, they're called, chairs, benches, some nice shrubbery. So it's age appropriate. It's nice. It's not stigmatizing. There are no signs there at this parklet that say, oh, by the way, if you have a disability or you use a wheelchair, here's a resting spot for you. This is a place where so many different types of people hang out because they need a break. They need to get out of the stimulating environment. They need to rest their tired legs from shopping all day long or what have you. So again, it's just useful for so many different types of people. Interestingly enough, I spent a lot of time working with camp people who are running day camps, who are running sleepaway camps. Kind of the newest trend at camps are chill spaces, particularly those inclusive camps. They're designing these chill spaces, indoor chill spaces, as well as outdoor chill spaces, implying that when a camper gets overstimulated, because they're now serving campers on the autism spectrum, for example, they're thinking, wow, to get away from all the noise and the activity and the action, here's a quiet place with some fidgets, with some beanbag chairs to rest, maybe a hammock to rest on, possibly some quiet music indoors, and it gives you a chance to kind of basically debrief and rest, and then maybe rejuvenate and go back to your fellow, friends at camp. You know who is using these chill spaces? Yes, campers with disabilities are using these chill spaces. However, campers without disabilities are using these chill spaces. And yes, all campers are using chill spaces, but it doesn't stop there. Staff members, camp counselors are using the chill spaces. They too need to get out of these overstimulating environments at day camp, at sleepaway camps, to get away from the noise and the stimulation, to rest for a few minutes. And so the point is, we do these smart things in the environment that are not stigmatizing, that are not segregating, and everybody benefits by them. Just think in terms of, equitable use at the workplace and how many smart things we can do. This is the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. They're always coming up with creative graphics to speak about universal design, which implies that things need to be equitable, not identical. And universal design thinks that way. Everything doesn't have to be identical for people with and without disabilities, as an example, but they need to be equitable. They need to help everybody succeed. I love their newest graphic on the right here that shows this apple tree, and we're all used to inequality. That stuff's been in our face forever. Whether you have a disability or you're marginalized in another way, you're from low socioeconomic status, you have brown skin, you use a wheelchair, whatever the case may be, there's a lot of inequality out there, right? The apple only falls to your side. And so we've learned to get beyond that, right? Like we can make things equal. Well, we'll give each one of these kids the same ladder. That's equal, right? That's going to be good. But if you notice, the girl on the right still doesn't have any access. Her bag that she's wearing around her waist, if you look close, is not full of apples. She's got the same equal, identical program, same ladder, but there are no apples. She can't reach the apples. That tree is kind of growing to the left. There aren't too many apples on that side. Okay, so it's identical, not serving many, many people well. So then we think in terms of equitable. Okay, it doesn't have to be identical, but it has to be equitable. So let's give somebody the tools they need to have success in that program. The tool here is that this young girl on the right side now gets a taller ladder that gives her better access to the tree. Okay, so that's good. It's not identical at all. She's got more tools, but in a socially just way, as the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation is showing us, in a socially just way, it's more than just giving somebody the tools. You have to also give somebody equal opportunity. So here they put some boards down to actually straighten out the tree. So this girl now has the same access to the apples as everybody else. So it's kind of a cute little graphic, but it really drives home the idea that we need to be thinking about equality and justice through tools, through adaptations, as well as through opportunities. And that's really a big part of universal design. Maddie, if you would continue on here. So, a few other examples, their buildings, this is not about the workplace, but it's certainly about recreation and sports, zero entry swimming pools that they thought they were going to be building so folks in wheelchairs can access, waterways. But as they learned at all these new, beautiful, very expensive water parks, they're building all their pools this way now because all the moms and dads and their little kids all are benefiting by entering into a pool with no stairs. So it's truly accessible to everybody. It's worth the initial investment. Many of you living in North Carolina have been up to beautiful Hanging Rock. They're building accessible fishing piers. They're double wide, so that you can go shoulder to shoulder with your friend or your sibling to go access the pier, and open and closed captioning so that not only older adults, but people who are having trouble reading or following what they're saying verbally on the stage can follow the movie or the play. I love the swing set idea, which basically says, they're real good at building adapted swings and playground equipment, but it's usually in a separate space on the other side of the playground. Now they're learning to do it where the adapted equipment is right next to the typical equipment, so that maybe a brother and sister can swing together in that playground rather than a mom having to figure out, well, what do I do? Do I go to the segregated part of the playground or do I hang out, here? And so those are just some nice examples of equitable use. And perceptible is really about, helping people succeed by communicating clearly, using legible information, pictures and verbal and touch, because we all have different strengths. We all have different intelligences. We all learn things a different way. If Maddie is given an opportunity to listen and to watch and to touch things, she'll just perform so much better. In so many of these new places that are universally designed, they're putting together these little laminated bracelets and little books. You could turn the pages that tell you exactly what you need to do to get you through the day. Schedules that are being put up on the walls. If you think that graphic schedule at the workplace is only going to help Trey get through the work that he does at Food Line, you're wrong. That graphic schedule that's hung up on the wall helps every employee at that Food Line, because we all need that support and want to go look at a wall every day as our own. We all have the same cheat sheet to tell us exactly what we need to do. This is what I'm talking about. These are proactive accommodations that just happen to help everybody. Maddie? In summary, why does universal design work so well? It's because it allows all people to participate together and succeed to their maximum. Now go back to that slide, Maddie, if you would. It allows people to succeed and alongside their peers at the workplace, in school, at the recreation center. Here's the Louvre Hotel on the left. It's the most widely accessed museum in the entire world, the Louvre in France. Here's their elevator, universally designed. It's a piece of art. Everybody's attracted to it. Not only those who have mobility problems, in a typical museum, you can't get up the stairs. You go to the dark bowels of the museum with big signs that say, by the way, if you have a disability, come this way in the back and we'll get you up to another floor. The Louvre says, no, we're going to make sure that people can get up and down to different floors through this artwork. In fact, more people want to use the elevator than the staircase that wraps around the elevator, because it's just so beautiful and it's so accessible. And they did it proactively. Look at that staircase to the right, where the ramp and the stairs are intertwined. So you could be wheeling up the ramp and climbing the stairs and remain next to each other. Maddie, next, if you would. So in summary, and that doesn't do universal design justice, but the idea is we need to be designing smart environments, because poor performance and the lack of inclusion has more to do with the program or the curriculum or the environment that's broken, that's sick, and not the fact that somebody is marginalized or has a label or a diagnosis. Poor performance is about the fact that we don't do things well as we design these programs. And we need to be thinking much more smartly about it, proactively, and in ways that don't stigmatize people.
And just before I head into the employment part, I was thinking, Stuart, about a conversation we had with Mike a few days ago. And Mike, you shared with us something that was happening at one of your jobs where there's some stickers that are used on food in the refrigerator. Can you tell us a little bit about how that works?
I think, Mike, when you had to get food out of the refrigerator, everything's marked so you know which is the older one to take out and use first. were there stickers and marks on the food in the fridge, maybe at a special blend?
Yeah, because like I said before, the other day, they have some stickers on the back of the bagel or whatever. They have it write down the date, actually have the dates, and put on the behind the bagel and put in the not the fridge, but to have like a sliding door that when the people comes in to order something, and they're pointing that I want this one. So we have to take it out and give it to the customer. Whatever is available is in there. They have a date in the year, and we give them some kind of bagel that they can order from there, which is right there, right in front of you.
Yeah, I think I remember you saying too that the stickers are even color coded so that
Right.
people can look kind of at a glance. And I don't know about other people, but when I'm looking at my refrigerator for expiration dates, it's a nightmare sometimes trying to find where the date is and read how the small print is and all of that. But a color coding would certainly helpful to a lot of people, I'm sure. If we're going to pull all the yellow stickers today and maybe the green stickers get pulled tomorrow, that's a great way of being able to display that. So thinking about how we link employment to community inclusion, because you've heard a lot about inclusion today. And Trey, I remember you saying that you enjoyed having some interactions with your coworkers at work in the break room. And as I was listening to Stuart earlier and we were talking about the chill space at camp, guess what's the chill space at work? It's the break room. And everybody probably needs to remove themselves from the work environment periodically, whether it's just to have lunch or a snack or get off your feet, or maybe you just need to chill out. But that's an opportunity, isn't it, Trey, as far as being with your coworkers?
Yeah, emphasis on getting off your feet. Whereas so during the times when I get finished with work a bit earlier and I'm just waiting on SCAT to come get me, then that's where I would normally go to, is towards the break room until I get a phone call that they're out there. And some of those times I'm either in there on my own, listening to music, or some of the times employees will come in order to sit and eat as well. When the ones that I regularly talk to come in, then that's mainly what we do. We just talk until that phone call comes in.
Okay, and I remember you saying that had given you some confidence in being able to interact with others more comfortably.
Especially when so my position is cut through. I'm mainly in the back the whole time, where everybody else pretty much has free roam and go all over the store. I'm mainly just in one spot the whole time, and I rarely get to be able to talk to anybody unless they were to walk right through and have to get something done back there. And this is mostly with every other person in the produce section. So whenever I come in the morning, say for example, the ones who usually work during cashiers, I speak to them from time to time. When they go inside the break room at the same time I do, then we usually talk more.
Do you think this has helped you out in the community as well to kind of build your confidence with interacting with people beyond work? Yeah, I can imagine that.
Because one of the big things is that when you're out in the, because one of the big things is that when you're out in the community, now that's one of the biggest difference when it comes to either being in school than to be at work, is that when you're at work, legitimately huge 9 times out of 10, you're the only person there that's actually like yourself. and to have enough confidence to be able to speak to others that are not entirely like you, it helps out.
Absolutely. Let's move on to the next slide, Maddie. And these numbers will not be a surprise to any of the folks that work in supported employment, but it still is pretty dismal when you look at it and think about it in terms of the percentages of people with disabilities who are employed. And especially when you think about that being employed often means, 4 to 8 hours a week. And how that impacts inclusion is just amazing as you think about it, because you think about less interaction with peers. Most people who do not have a disability and are of working age are working 40 plus hours a week, probably the majority of the time. I don't have that statistic, but when that's happening, who do you hang out with? If you're only working 4 or 8 hours a week, who are you hanging out with if all of your peers are at work? Well, that's segregation. And that's how we end up a lot of times in segregated programming, because that's all you have available to you, because you're typically developing peers or your people without disabilities are working. Kind of a catch-22. So we talked about, how do you expand and get past some of this? How do you build skills? And I'll reiterate, we are not job coaches. We are not going to tell you how to do supported employment services, but I did want to give an example of something that I think was particularly helpful to a number of individuals. And this was several years ago. There was a group that we started with the local chapter of the ARC. And Sherelle, I'm sure you probably remember this. And that was the Job Club. And the purpose of that was actually twofold. It was to educate the community as well as to develop some professional skills and a level of professionalism, rather, in people with disabilities. And we did that by involving community leaders. So this group would meet at area banks or restaurants, hospitals, the Fresh Market headquarters here in Greensboro. And speakers talked about professional dress and behaviors and expectations at the workplace. And it was really interesting. It kind of was a raising the bar opportunity where you could just see it happening as the speaker came in, and you're in this professional conference room. Everybody sat a little straighter and held their heads up. It was such an affirming opportunity. And the education was reciprocal, because those community leaders learned about skills and development for workplace enhancement, really, by hiring people with disabilities, as well as the individuals who were looking for jobs, to be able to see, there's a possibility here, and I can learn how to do these things. So that was real important. So let's move on to the next slide, Maddie. A lot of what needs to be considered too, and I think this is important, as we talked about, if you're only working 4 to 8 hours a week, kind of not much of an opportunity for team building or a sense of having cooperative goals in the workplace. How valuable it could be to build that team by including that individual. Perhaps if there's something going on important and it's that person's day off, they come in that day. Are you going to have a team meeting? Are you going to celebrate a coworker's birthday? What's going on that they're missing because they're only there 4 to 8 hours a week? Very important to look at that and to include individuals who are part-time for whatever reason. This isn't, again, just for people with disabilities. If you're a part-time worker, sometimes you feel like, you just are not part of the team. So this is real important for everybody. And I wanted Trey, if we have time, I know we're running short here. I would love for Trey to speak to the team building that took place at Food Lion, where you work. What happens when there's a power outage, Trey?
These These don't particularly happen all too often, but when we do, we other than the fact that most of the customers have to just put the stuff down and go out of the store, and then we have to start putting the stuff that normally needs to be frozen or it'll go bad inside the trucks. And most of the time we have to take of course grocery carts, as well as I think there was a time when we had to use we had to cut garbage bags in order to like put on top of the frozen section, just to make sure that the cold stays exactly where it is. And it's mainly when literally every person in every department has to do this. Like, of course, when things are running smoothly, it's normally like a conveyor belt. One person has to do something so that the other person is able to succeed at something, etc., etc. Where at this, everyone stop what you're doing. Everybody has to do this.
You've got a common goal that needs to happen. You've got everybody on board. That is a true team effort. And those of us that buy our groceries appreciate knowing that they've been well tended during those times when they didn't have when you didn't have electricity. So with this, we've got, you hear about being a trainer advocate or a mentor, and certainly all of you as supported employment specialists and others on the team at Abound Health are advocates, and you are trainers, and you are mentors. I want you to think about too, as you look at employment in particular, that coworker who has the potential to be a mentor. It shouldn't all be on the supervisor. They're typically, and you may mention this to the supervisor, the one that's hiring, is there somebody on this team that you identify that could be a good mentor for a new employee? And that can make a big difference going forward in success in the workplace. Maddie?
So as we wrap up, we just wanted to leave you with some takeaways. Commuting to collaborate. Don't just communicate and make assumptions. Have a common goal. Talk to someone and collaborate. It's a joint effort. It's not just one person telling the person with the disability what they need to do or what they should do. It should be a collaborative thing. And assessing individual needs and preferences. Everyone is different. Preferences are different. So it's important to keep that in mind and give that support as needed. In that video, when that man took her mobility aid, he like whacked the bug, or when they opened the door, that was not helpful. So making sure that you're asking before just assuming, and then you're using your staff and your mentors effectively. And also just proactive accommodations and smart environmental designs. Universal design is really important. And whenever we design things from the onset to cater to the most and broadest amount of people, that's going to be success in your environment and then success for everyone involved. So we just wanted to thank Abound Health for having us today. And we have a few questions posed on here. So maybe you heard something specifically during today's session that's helpful to you. We'd love to hear your feedback. And if you are interested in any additional trainings, and we just invite you to look internally. We're talking about employment experiences and inclusion in the community. This goes so much further than the workplace. This goes out in the community, going to Food Line, going to the park. We really need to start thinking of everyone involved and how we can make our community more accessible and caring about that and getting past these attitudinal barriers. So thank you so much, Sherelle, for having us. And if anyone is interested in any additional training, we'd love to have you check out our website. You can follow us on all our social media channels, and that QRL code just takes you right to our website. So just thank you so much for having us, and we really enjoy working with Abound Health.
Thank you so much. We greatly appreciate all the wealth of information, and I just want to say thank you to Allie, Trey, Mike, Maddie, Ginger, and Stuart from Infocus Advocacy, and we definitely look forward to continuing our collaboration and partnership. And to conclude our Supportive Employment Symposium for this year, I just want to say thank you to everyone that was on the call today, including Infocus Advocacy, Brandon Shannon Entertainment, Gabby Powered by Special Abilities, and Chisa Give It to the People. I want to let everyone know, look forward to next year being in person. We're going to be having this in October to celebrate National Disability Employment Awareness Month. We look forward to having hopefully everyone that was on the call this year be able to come in person in October. We'll have a save the date coming out, and we'll be having that in Raleigh. So we look forward to having some more collaborative opportunities to be able to talk about competitive integrated employment and our workforce development initiatives across the state through Abound Health. And thank you to everyone again for joining today's event. Hope you all enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Bye, everyone.